Hello, beautiful beings of Earth. My name is Ash. Today I felt called to share with you all about the concept of non-judgment. Judgments don't really exist, and how to transmute all these judgments and negative energies into the highest possible timeline. The process that I'm going to describe to you is not only meditation, but it does begin with meditation, and that's how my journey began, because one day, as a spiritual awakening usually happens, all the pain and the suffering that you usually go through, it isn't worth it to you anymore, and you know there's more out there, and you know that other people have done it, and you start to look up resources. So I started with a simple meditation app. I think it was called Balance, and obviously this is not sponsored or anything like that, but it really did help me learn beginner meditation because I didn't even know what it was or how to do it. So they taught me to literally, like, watching whatever thought came in your head, the typical meditation. What I did then was to imagine in my mind's eye boxes, categories in which these thoughts can be put into. So I realized that most of my thoughts were judgments, and those were either judgments of myself or it was a judgment of another person, whether that be like a kind of narcissistic judgment, which we all have sometimes, if you just randomly think somebody is ugly or unattractive or something along those lines, it is a narcissistic thought. And then there's also judgments of people who may have wronged you in the past. That person made me suffer, and now I'm judging them. I don't like them. And I've done all three. Like, I still have these thoughts. It's just about knowing what to do with them and knowing what to believe with these thoughts. You put these thoughts into these concept boxes in your brain every time they come up. And not every thought that came up was a judgment. Some were happy memories, some was anxiety for the future, and blah blah blah, and whatever it was, we put it into those boxes. And I still continue to do this whenever I become conscious of it. Oh, that thought is just an anxiety for a possible timeline that doesn't even exist. Okay, well, I don't want to manifest that reality, so that's gotta leave. What I realized from that experiment is that most of my thoughts, and probably everyone else's thoughts too, are judgment. Judgments are never necessary. I know your ego wants you to believe that when you're judging something, it is making you understand it more, but it's actually the opposite. It's actually in conflict with understanding something, because to fully and truly understand something, there can be no judgments towards it. It has to be an unbiased and completely felt point of view, if that makes sense. So I want to share an example with you guys that I believe is the highest possible timeline for this situation that happened, and it just so happened to have the scenario in a cartoon show, but the lessons are divine, and I love this show. It is Avatar: The Last Airbender, and the specific example I'm going to give you is about Zuko's Uncle Iroh. This is my favorite spiritual example of all time, and I always tell people about this example when the concept of non-judgment comes up. Uncle Iroh serves to be like the spiritual guide. They don't say it, obviously, but he just proves to be that. In this story, it's nighttime, and Uncle Iroh is sitting by his fire, having his favorite jasmine green tea, and all of a sudden, a guy in a face mask comes up to him and holds a weapon to him and attempts to rob him. And so instead of showing fear, instead of fighting the guy, instead of even judging the guy, Uncle Iroh, he offers him an ear to be there for him. And this completely defuses the robber. He's shocked. He's just like, well, I didn't expect that. And he takes up Uncle Iroh's offer on listening, being heard, feeling loved, feeling accepted unconditionally regardless of your wrong actions. Completely transmutes the guy. He's vulnerable now with Uncle Iroh. He feels safe with him. Once he lets go of his traumas, he no longer wants to rob people. He no longer feels that that's necessary or right thing to do along his path. That is the power of non-judgment. So how to transmute these judgments when they come up in your mind. So now that you've noticed them and categorized them, now you can transmute them. And how to transmute them is by saying the opposite of the judgment that you were saying. So if you were criticizing yourself, oh, I look fat today, say the opposite. And notice how it doesn't feel good when you say that. Or if you say a negative judgment about someone else, it doesn't feel good when you say that. And that's your emotional guidance system telling you that that information is false. That's not true information. And so when you say something good about yourself, when you say the opposite, I look great today, I look beautiful, I look deserving and worthy, and that feels good in your heart because it's true. And that's your emotional guidance system and source and your higher self telling you that that information is true. This also involves observing what you're allowing yourself to believe. Say someone calls you stupid and your brain wants to accept that as truth and your ego wants to identify with that and you feel the pain of it. And we have to remember that we're only feeling the pain because it's not true. If we take that as truth, if we believe it, if we sulk in it, then that becomes your reality. And you get stuck in a victim mindset. Now we know from our higher self, our karmic contracts, our soul contracts, and the way that the universe works, that none of us are victims. And that's a powerless way to think. We have to remember that the more empowering way to think is, no, I'm not. I'm not stupid. And you know why? Stupidity doesn't exist. There's no line between the end of smartness and the beginning of stupidity, and vice versa. It's just a judgment. It's just a judgment created by someone a long time ago with ill intent. Nobody's stupid. It's not real. Another judgment that I love is laziness. Tell me that wasn't created by the patriarch to basically shame people into working harder, working longer, jobs, being a wage slave. To tie it all together, the method that I used to start to transform my brain and transform my thoughts was to catch my thought in action and to determine if it's true or not. Because if it's a judgment, I know it's not true. And that goes for that person or me or anyone else. There's no logical truth behind the judgment. Then you can transmute that into the exact opposite and feel in your heart if that's the truth or not. And your heart will tell you instantly if what you're saying is the truth or false. And that's because it'll either feel good in your heart or it'll feel negatively, it'll hurt. So the choice is always up to you. Thoughts aren't you. Thoughts and judgments are just a projection from the ego, and it's not about fighting the ego, resisting any of that. It's about making friends with the ego and utilizing the ego when you need to in survivalist situations, rather than letting the ego mind use you at all times. Our greatest gift is our attention, our focus, because that is what literally creates our reality. That's literally how it's our perception on life, what we put our focus on. And so you want to make sure you're focusing on things that make you feel good, make you feel loved and whole, because that's the truth. And there's no point in wasting any time thinking otherwise. Also being easier on yourself and not feeling guilt for if you do judge somebody. It's just part of the ego mind You don't have to identify with your judgments towards anybody. They are all innocent because the ego is innocent. The ego is just trying to help us survive. It doesn't know any better that judgments hurt people. It doesn't know that. It doesn't realize that. We realize that. Guilt, again, will just bring us back to the victim mentality, which is a more selfish mindset because you're thinking that you are special by being unworthy and that everyone else is worthy except for you. And that's just a false mindset. Another question that I like to ask myself, especially if it's a difficult situation, is what is the highest vibrational timeline for this circumstance right now? And I'll tell you that the answer that I come up with in my head is always me empowering myself while empowering the other person as well. And that's the highest vibrational timeline. It's a win-win situation. Even if it's a super bad situation that happens to you, what are you taking out of it? Are you taking the identification with the pain and the suffering and the story? Or are you realizing that it's part of your journey, your karma, and your higher self contracted it for you, and it's happening for you, for growth, for learning? Sooner or later, the thoughts that start to come into your mind are no longer negative, they're no longer judgments, they start to become truthful, neutral. And that's a beautiful thing for me, because I had depression for so long. I had the victim mentality for so long. And those thoughts just start to go away. Like I said, I'm by all means still practicing this. And I think that you should practice this every day, even if your brain is now rewired. And just like anything, just like any functioning tool, it needs regular maintenance, and that is the way to really provide that tinkering, that maintenance to your soul and to your brain, to your ego. Make friends with it. You are here for a reason, and your experience in this lifetime is all that matters. It is everything. And how you perceive that experience is everything. It's your life. So I really hope this video helped you at least a little bit. I plan on creating content more. I am a brand new YouTuber. I have nothing right now, if I'm being honest, but I'm here for it. I'm here for the experience and I'm here for the growth. I'm tired of being shy and not putting myself out there, so this is me putting myself out there. Yeah, any feedback you have on this video would be really super helpful for me. You can expect to see more content from me about the worthiness wound and how to be more in alignment with your true self. Please like and subscribe, and I really hope this video could help give you some clarity and help ease your mind and help you not be so hard on yourself. We're all learning together, so alright, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.